Now, outside the H-1B visa, is there another visa people can use to come to work legally in the United States and not illegally?
Absolutely, Frank. There's another visa, for example, the L1 visa.
L1 visa, and what is that?
Well, the L1 visa helps those who are working for a company abroad for one of the past 3 years, and they want to come to that same company, their parent, affiliate, or subsidiary in the U.S. So you work for a company such as Tyco abroad, you want to come into the U.S., you can continue working for that same company. That's the L1. There are other visas, such as the E1 and E2, which depends on your nationality. You can invest in opening up a...
And how much do you have to invest?
Well, unlike the green card, the E1 or E2 visa, the E2 being the investor, it's actually just a substantial amount, and it will depend on the type of company. The green card investor visa, as you may be aware of, is actually $1 million and sometimes $500,000, but that's for the green card. But the E2 visa is the temporary version of that.
And what exactly $500,000, if you put it in this country in a bank account, which creates a job, allows you to get that L1 or L2 visa? Am I correct to assume what you just said?
Well, different from the L1, there's the E1 and E2
Excuse
visa.
me, I meant to say E1, E2. Good.
Yes.
Thank you for your correction.
Absolutely. So the E2 visa being the investor, the E1 being the treaty trade visa, where there's trade. But yes, with the E2 visa, you don't necessarily need $500,000. It really depends on the company. But there is a green card, which is not the E2. I know it gets very complicated.
That's okay.
And it's very difficult to
navigate. That's the reason we need people like yourself, who's a lawyer.
Absolutely, and we help depending on the circumstances and the goals and of any of our clients. We help match them through what's the pathway of least resistance and what will reach their goal in the shortest amount of time. And that's what we try to do as immigration attorneys.
Great. So how does a person become a United States citizen? And how long does it take? And how much does it cost?
The cost...
As I understand, the applying for the citizenship, the fee that we were talking about has been increased.
Exactly.
And people are complaining about it a lot.
It has increased substantially.
Substantially is a good word.
And it's now $675.
Per person?
Per person.
And how long is the wait?
Well, once you're a green card holder for 5 years, you can apply. And actually, 90 days prior to your 5th year, it's a little tip there. You could actually file your application. And with spouses of U.S. citizens, you only need to wait 3 years. And those in the military, there are also exceptions beyond the short of the 5 year.
Oh, so let's suppose I get married to a U.S. citizen. You know, I'm just an example.
Right.
And that woman is a U.S. citizen, so born here in this country, whatever the case may be, maybe U.S. citizen. This means I can get the United States citizenship after 3 years after holding the green card. Am I correct?
That's exactly right.
Not the typical 5-year wait period.
Exactly.
Okay, I did not know that. Well, that's good. That's good to know. Now, you know, we're talking about the economy. Economy is pretty bad.
Yes.
As you probably know. So people are losing jobs. So across the United States. So what happens to immigrants who are on the work visa who lose their jobs?
That's a great question, Frank. We see that, unfortunately, too often these days.
Right.
And what we see are, for example, someone on the H-1B visa. Because the H-1B visa is employer-specific, you must...
Employer-specific.
Exactly.
So if a person got the H-1B visa on a company A, if that person wants to change to company B, do they have to go through another process to get that done?
They do need to file another application in order to change companies. Fortunately, as long as there's a new company there, once you file, you don't need to wait for the approval. You can actually change companies once you file the application. Now, it has to be a good faith application with a real, all the dots of the I's and the T's, the crosses of the T's have to be made. But it's there is an ability to transfer companies, but you're not just a free agent. You do have to have an employer sponsor. So what happens if you have been laid off and you don't have any time? Well, the law technically says if you've been terminated, you must leave. Now, there is some talk as to whether there's 30 days, how much time does one get before they have to leave? Could they look for a new employer after they've been terminated? And technically, the law says you cannot. You actually must leave at that time. They give you approximately 10 days. Now, this is not in the law, but customarily, Department of Homeland Security will give you about 10 days to leave, but not necessarily to shop for a new job.
Okay.
So the advice is, if you are going to be laid off, prior to the termination, it is very important to secure a new position.
With a new job at the new employer.
Exactly right. And that's the way to do things to keep your situation secure.
And you can keep it, as I understand what you said, about 6 years, the H-1B visa.
That's correct. That's correct.
And then you can convert that into the green card.
Well, you can file simultaneous for a green card.
You can file simultaneously.
Exactly.
But the process is so long and drawn. A lot of people complain about these things. So is that what the immigration reform will do? Is to reduce the paperwork that people have to do in order for them to get the green card or the citizenship?
That's a great question. There's a lot of bureaucracy.
Yeah, well, this is the government for you.
Exactly. Well, I think it will reduce. The proposal is to try to reduce the time, for example, for families or for employers to keep an individual or to get their green card, especially that 7% per country cap that we talked about, where, for example, someone who is from India is applying for a green card, they are waiting longer than someone maybe from the UK, because there's 7% per country is used up quite fast.
As I understand, as soon as they open up, the visa for the people who belong to Indian subcontinent as well as come from China, they're all gone within maybe a couple of weeks.
Well, the H-1B visa in the past several years, the 65,000 H-1Bs per year that Congress has permitted.
So this is an additional quota?
There is a H-1B quota. Now this is for the H-1Bs, not for the green cards.
Okay, I got you.
So there's only 65,000 per year.
Per country?
No, altogether.
Altogether, not that many.
And there's an additional 20,000 for those with advanced degrees, masters and PhDs.
And the advanced degrees should be from the United States accredited university or from the foreign country?
Great question, Frank. Those from the U.S. universities.
From the U.S. universities.
Graduating from a U.S. university with a master's or PhD can then get into that extra 20,000. So there is an advantage for someone who has pursued their master's or PhD when it comes to the H-1B. Now, interestingly, and maybe not surprisingly, is in this economy, we have not reached that cap. In the past, like you said, 65,000 has been reached on the first day that they have become available each year. This year, only reached 45,000.
So what they do with that 25,000? They have not exhausted that for that year. Do they roll it over for the next year?
Well,
for the following year?
No, they're still available.
They're still available.
So someone right now could, unlike in the past years, it's been many months that they've been available. They're still available.
Is that because we live in a trouble and tramp time?
It is.
Because the economy is not doing well?
Exactly. I mean, the demand of the H-1B visas reflects the economy very much so in this regard.
So if I'm a permanent resident or the citizen of the United States, how do I sponsor my spouse? How do I sponsor my brothers and sisters, my parents? Tell me.
Well, the good news is if it's an immediate relative, which means your immediate family member in the immigration law is considered to be your spouse, your child, or your parents, there is no numerical limit. So we talked about a numerical limit. Well, there's none for the immediate family. But then when you start looking at married children, there's a second preference. Then there's another third preference when you talk about permanent residents and their family members. So if you're a permanent resident, not a U.S. citizen filing for your family member, there's a longer wait. And then the longest wait
is the
for
brothers and
the
sisters,
brothers and
which is
sisters
the
of
last
US
preference, which I
of
understand is
US
the fifth
citizens.
preference.
The fourth preference, exactly.
Oh, okay.
So there's the longest wait for the brothers and
Well,
sisters.
great, Peter. Thank you very much for
thank you
coming
for
over here. I
having me.
appreciated that very much. Well, thank you very much for watching. That is our show. Until next time, this is Frank Islam wishing you a great